Hello, Vlogalogue. I'm the Owl's Perch, or Jocelyn, whichever you prefer to call me by. This isn't normally where I film. I'm back home because it's spring break, and even though I have my tripod, I can't really set it up anywhere, I realized as I was getting ready for this video. So you're probably going to see me hand off my camera between my hands, but I promise this is probably only going to be for this week because I normally have a place where I can film with a tripod and keep it pretty steady. So the topic is about video games, and I might kind of talk a little bit of everywhere with how I go about it, so excuse me while I do that. So I grew up, like Alex, playing the N64, except I played a lot more family games at first. It was really a lot of 007 GoldenEye and Mario Kart 64 while I watched my brother play Legend of Zelda and Super Mario World, I believe. And while it was a lot of fun watching him play, I liked playing the games, but it definitely set me off from playing first-person shooters because I could not get a handle of GoldenEye and my brother would find me and kill me before I shot him. Or for some reason, even if I shot him or managed to finally start shooting him, he killed me first. So I had a problem with first-person shooters after that, which I've only recently been fixing, which has made me find why I like PCs a lot better for certain video games, but I still am very much a console person. In fact, I recently got a hold of a Xbox 360 in my possession, and I'm finally starting to play through the Assassin's Creed series properly because I'm one of those people who likes to play through games chronologically in the way that they came out and the way the storyline's supposed to be told instead of just playing through them like however I come across them. Niall kind of brought this up in his video about genders, the whole gender bias in gaming, and I can definitely agree with part of his thing about Candy Crush and games, but it also feeds into one of the problems with it. I actually had a whole paper I wrote about this last year. But yeah, no, I grew up playing video games, and a lot of the times if I ever mentioned I was playing video games to guys, they kind of figured I didn't mean the video games they were talking about because obviously I'm a girl and I don't have any interest in playing those games, which was really weird. And even still, like, I mean, it stopped a lot. Sort of. It depends on what you play and who you're around, I guess, or at least in my experience, as to how they react. I play a lot of things now, definitely a lot of console games, but I also play PC, and like I play RPGs, and like I play MMO RPGs and strategy games and all different kinds of games. I love video games. And a lot of the time, apparently there seems to be this presumption that females can only play certain types of games, like we're only interested in Cooking Mama or dance games, which is really weird to me, but I mean, like, I understand that there are girls who those are the kinds of video games they're into, and there's nothing wrong with that, but apparently that's us as a gender, because there have been several times where I've had comments made sort of about the fact that I'm a female who plays video games. Most of the time it tends to be like, oh, that's awesome, you totally understand when your boyfriend wants to go off and play for hours because you're the same kind of way, like you like video games, so that's really nice that you're that understanding as a person. And that's sort of problematic in its own sense because I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna tell him not to, and most of the time we'll try to play together, either that or at least we're still next to each other doing something, but that's a different point entirely. There was also one interaction I had that kind of, I just had to kind of laugh at because I was playing one of the rather popular games, League of Legends, and a lot of the times I play with friends, and so we have Skype conversations going on, and occasionally they'll invite people that they know that play, and then they have them on Skype, and it might be my first time playing with them, and so we're all over Skype, and I think everyone except for one of the people in our 5-man on League had played with me before. So they were used to it, and they were all talking, and I hadn't really said much, and then at one point I speak up, and then one of the people was like, wait, is that a girl? And I was like, yeah, and that just kind of was the extent of it. But it's still this whole surprise at there being females who are interested in playing these games, which to an extent I understand, because as far as you see, like, especially with professional gaming esports, there's not a whole lot of females from what I've seen, and like the videos I've seen of like this thing where females aren't really all that present. It's a lot of guys. It's just interesting being a female who plays games like Assassin's Creed and Borderlands and eventually we'll be getting into BioShock and stuff like that, and having this idea that no, you shouldn't be playing those. Shouldn't you be playing like I don't know, Tetris? Because apparently Tetris used to be gendered, which was one of the few things I learned when I was researching my paper. But yeah, really odd thing I think about with video games that kind of has always been attached to my experience because growing up playing them, it's always been kind of a thing where it's like, no, that's kind of like a guy thing, but I'm like, why does it have to be? Where in the game does it say you have to be a guy to play and or like the idea of this game? Like, just because it's violent? Do I have to be a guy? Because guys are supposedly inherently violent. I'm not entirely sure. And it's really weird, and I think you definitely see the dynamics of that changing. There's a lot more of a female presence now than I think there used to be, and a lot more of girls, like, openly saying, yeah, we like to play video games, and yeah, we like kicking butt too, because why not? And I think one of the ways you can definitely see that sort of change is how it changed, like, even in the Pokemon series and, like, the Fable games, how instead of just having, like, you could only play a guy character, you could choose the gender of the character you picked, and it wasn't just like a Sims game type thing. Like, it's becoming more common in games where it's about the player that you can choose the gender. And I think that's a good thing, because, I mean, I know guys who didn't care and wanted to play female characters, and it just helps, and it diversifies your audience, and video games are for everyone. And I kind of agree with Niall. It's about, like, getting into a character's thing, though I kind of disagree with his argument about video games being better than books, but that's probably more because I don't think you should compare the two, because they both have different methods of getting you into a different mindset, and I want to be an author, so I don't like book bashing, but I know he probably comes from it at a different perspective because he's also in the video game industry now. But I also kind of want to mention something that's just really intriguing to me and hasn't necessarily been mentioned, and I don't know if any of the other people have ever experienced this. I just know I have. But there's been a few studies conducted with people who play video games and how they dream. Now, personally, I have very vivid and weird dreams all the time. There's a connection that studies have shown that people who play video games actually tend to be more lucid dreamers and more aware that they are in a dreamlike state and can control their dreams. And I've actually kind of had this experience a few times, in which case I had a dream that seemed like it was going to turn into a nightmare, and I managed to steer it away from that direction. And I've had moments where I was actually in a nightmare and managed to wake myself up because I did not like the nightmare, which no one really does. And I've had dreams where I'm in it and I'm just kind of like, I don't know what's going on, but I kind of want to figure out what's going on and steer the direction of it. And I've had moments where it's like I'm reacting to my dream and it changes how the dream goes, and I think that's a really cool thing. It makes me wonder about the way things are and just the general view of this, and I'm sorry that there's going to be a lot of split shots where I'm moving between, but I figure it's easier if I move where I'm looking and my camera at the same time with my arms, so it seems less like it's just shaky. But yeah, I thought it was a cool connection when I first read about it, and then it made sense. Like, I didn't actively seek out to try it. Like, after I read it, I didn't go to sleep and like have a dream and was like, okay, I'm gonna try to control this dream. No, it just kind of was things that ended up happening after that had been put in the back of my mind. So I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting, and the kind of impact that video games can have in that sense. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole idea that video games encourage violence in the real world and stuff, like, which I don't only agree on, because there are a whole lot of other things that probably affect people and their violence more than playing Grand Theft Auto 5, which honestly I haven't even played a single Grand Theft Auto game in my life, so maybe I'm not the right person to ask. But anyways, yeah, I think the dream connection's really cool, and I think the gender bias of being a female gamer is kind of starting to diminish. But I'm gonna stop babbling now and let that be the end of my first video on the, well, not even my first video on this channel, because I have a video back from before when they had guests, because I was one of the guests one time, actually in the same room, just somewhere else that I can't film right now. I will see you all next week, Vlogalogians, and I look forward to seeing Alex's recap and what we talk about next week. Bye!